Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's online worship service. I'm Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom, and I'm honored to serve as First Church's senior minister. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you're bringing with you today and all your heart longs to set down. We'd like to pay a special welcome to any guests who are joining us for worship today. If you're visiting for the first time or joining us from afar, why don't you say hello in the chat and tell us where you're joining from? I'd like to welcome everyone into our worship service by inviting you to repeat our mission after me. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Our opening words this morning are the poem The Last Good Days by Lynn Ungar, a Unitarian Universalist poet. What will you do with the last good days? Before the seas rise and the skies close in, before the terrible bill for all our thoughtless wanting finally comes due, what will you do with the last fresh morning, filled with the watermelon scent of cut grass and the insistent bird calling sweet, sweet across the shining day? Crops are dying. Economies failing, men crazy with the lust for power and fame are shooting up movie theaters and engineering the profits of banks. It's entirely possible it only gets worse from here. How can you leave your heart open to such vast, pervasive sadness? And how can you close your eyes to the riot of joy and beauty that remains? The solutions, if there are any to be had, are complex, detailed, demanding. The answers are immediate and small. Wake up. Give thanks. Sing. Let's go now to our beloved sanctuary to light the chalice, which is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism.
Good morning. My name is Mark Chambers, and I'm here to share with you my personal Unitarian Universalist story. My UU life covers a span of about 20 years, not all of it obviously here at First Church. It covers a geography that runs from South Bend, Indiana through Washington, D.C., and for the last 3 years here at the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. Doing a pledge testimonial was good reason to ask myself, why did I start down this path to begin with, and then remain on it? Part of the answer starts before the beginning of my UU life. I grew up in the Milwaukee and Waukesha County communities in a practicing but practical Catholic household. This is probably not dissimilar to the stories of many of you. The Baltimore Catechism, altar and choir boy duty, the smells and bells of Christmas and Easter services were all a part of my elementary school life. I'm not sure I gave a lot of thought to the theology, but the experience was truly wonder-filled. It brought me enchantment and I suppose a respect for the ceremony and tradition, but it didn't bring me discovery about my own soul, nor the value of community. Then came college with the Jesuits at Marquette, and a lot of thinking about questions that the church wasn't answering for me personally. A little too much dogma that didn't resonate with me and which I could not connect to the compassion and justice that I saw in the work of Father Grappi in the areas of fair housing and civil rights. Our UU principles, especially the first one, resonate strongly with me. When I ground myself, my belief in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, I can feel my heart open. For example, the task of caring for my quadriplegic sister is not a chore, but rather the embodiment of the first principle. I can't say I experienced a falling off a horse-like epiphany, but my first casual exposure at the First Unitarian Church of South Bend hinted that the questioning I had always been doing, the wonder of my earliest religious experiences, and the growing understanding of the importance of community might all be found in the arms of my fellow UUs. And that's what happened. My wife Janine likes to tell the story that after 40 years of saying she'd never have a dog or join a church, we, of course, joined All Souls Unitarian in DC and found our beloved Labradoodle, Cooper. And life has never been the same. Cooper demands regular exercise and gives us back unconditional love. Our church consistently challenges us to find our true selves and do good work in the world, and gives us back unconditional welcome and a community of support to grow in. When moving back to Milwaukee from DC, finding connection with another UU congregation was clearly a factor in easing our return. And wouldn't you know, a minister friend there, on learning where we were moving, insisted that we come to First Church, where her good friend, Jennifer Nordstrom, was the senior minister. So here we are, and certainly better for it. This community has become vital to the nourishment of our souls and to the awakening of our engagement in the wider community. For us, First Church has more impact on us personally and more impact on those things we believe in than any other cause to which we contribute. As a First Church friend of mine, Pat McFarland, says, this church punches above its weight class. This is why, although my wife and I are retired on fixed incomes, and though our largest single annual charitable contribution already goes to this church, we are increasing our pledge this year by 15%. We are all in. Are you? Thank you for your support to First Church.
You got to do when the Spirit says do. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you've got to do, oh Lord. You got to do when the Spirit says do. 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 You got to sing when that Spirit says sing. Sing when the Spirit says sing. You got to sing when that Spirit says sing. Sing, sing, sing. When the Spirit says sing, you got to sing, oh Lord. You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. 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 Spirit says sing.
You got to groove when the Spirit says groove.
You gotta be grooving. You gotta be
You've
grooving.
got to groove when the Spirit says groove.
You have got to groove.
When the Spirit says groove, you've got to groove, oh Lord. You've got to groove
Got to
when the
groove.
Spirit says groove.
Says groove.
Spirit says groove. Spirit says groove. Spirit says groove. Spirit says groove. Spirit says groove. Spirit says groove.
You got to rock when the Spirit says rock. You got to rock when the Spirit says rock.
Thank you so much to everyone who submitted their pledges already. If you want to submit your pledge in time to get your photo in that amazing photo montage to The Spirit Says Do, which I know I do, you'll need to get it to us in the next couple of days. Say by late Tuesday, we want to have your photo and your pledge drive form so that we can make the photo montage for next Sunday, which is our pledge celebration Sunday. So of course, we're delighted to receive your pledges after that, but consider Tuesday your deadline for getting into that photo montage, which is so fun. I think I must really miss you all because every time I see your faces in that pledge drive photo montage, I get a little teary. So it's good to see you, and hopefully I will see you next Sunday in our big celebration Sunday pledge drive photo montage. So this morning, I am delighted to share with you the news of 2 births in our congregation. Cherie and Anthony Taylor welcomed James Linnell Aubrey Taylor to the world on February 4th at 7:38 p.m., weighing 6.5 pounds. Older siblings Madison and Anthony are delighted to welcome baby James to the family, and baby parents and siblings are all doing well. Brian and Tammy Hilgeman welcomed Maria Joy Hilgeman to the world on February 24th, 2021 at 2:11 p.m., weighing 6 pounds, 13 ounces. The whole family is happy and healthy, and older siblings Kaylin and Bennett are at home loving the cuddles and helping out, and everyone is doing great. As is our custom in this congregation, whenever we have a birth, an adoption, or a death among our members, we light our candle of life. Today, in honor of James Linnell Aubrey Taylor and Maria Joy Hilgeman. I welcome you in now to a time of meditation, which will be followed by silence, followed by the spirit of life. So take a moment and just get comfortable in your body. That could mean any number of different things to you. Maybe it means bringing your attention to your breath, letting it move in and out, and bring you into being here and now. Maybe it means paying attention to your feet or your sit bones and letting them ground you in the steadiness of the earth, the floor, the chair that holds you up. Maybe it means bringing your attention to your head, to the very tip top of it, that crown that connects you up and out to all that is. Maybe it means looking inside for some place of strength, some place of energy, some place of nurture that you can breathe into and make bigger to nourish your whole body. Whatever you do to get comfortable in your body, do it now. Spirit of life and love, Holy One of our being and our becoming, that which is sacred within, among, and beyond us. Come be with us today in the complex interwoven reality of joy woven with grief as we celebrate spring and the opening weather and also mark 1 year since this pandemic began. Comfort our hearts, still our minds. Allow us to be in the presence of the love that holds all beings, that is all that is. May we learn to be present to our own bodies and their signals, to our own minds and their processes, to our own feelings and their needs. May we be loving presences to those around us and to the community. May we know ourselves, and in that knowing, choose the deeper, broader commitment of love. May it be so, and amen.
Good morning. My name is Amy Wilborn, and I am delighted to be your worship associate today. I haven't always been great at following through on commitments. There have been a number of interests, activities, and workshops where I have jumped ship partway through. My reputation even earned me a nickname with one of my brothers, Aimless, and I started to take that nickname to heart. Quitting felt like failure. While I am easily distracted, I've come to realize that other dynamics were at play with some of the things that I have committed to and abandoned early. In retrospect, I believe the main contributing factor for my wandering devotion was a lack of discernment, or at the very least, my methods of discernment were flawed. Take my short stint as a runner, for example. Despite never having run longer than the 600-yard dash in the 6th grade, during which I hyperventilated and had to breathe into a paper bag, I decided in my mid-40s that I would run a 5K. Why? Because everyone around me was doing them. 10Ks, mud runs, triathlons, all the things that sounded dreadful to me. I wanted to be doing what my friends were doing. So even though I hated running, I laced up my shoes and trained for a 5K with a friend. I did it. I ran the 5K. I even ran 2. Despite all the work I put into it, however, I gave it up immediately after crossing the second finish line. I'm not saying that I didn't feel a sense of accomplishment from running. I did. But I didn't enjoy doing it, and what I got out of it wasn't worth the drudgery I put into it. Another time when I committed to something that I did not see through to the end was being on my children's school PTA. I wanted to be involved in their school, and several of my friends had volunteered. I took on a leadership role despite having few worthwhile skills to offer. I really enjoyed socializing with my friends at those meetings, but I found I was nearly allergic to asking people for money, which was pretty much the primary skill needed to be a PTA leader. I don't consider trying these things a mistake. They were learning experiences, and sometimes quitting early isn't giving up. It's acknowledging that something isn't a fit. These experiences made me realize that my time is valuable and that I don't really want to spend it doing things I don't enjoy or don't have something to contribute. Over the years, I've learned to honor how valuable my time is by developing stronger discernment skills for how to spend it. When I was single and a full-time working mom with a job that involved 100 miles of driving each day, I had a lot less time and energy to offer, and naturally trimmed back on committing to anything other than kid activities and church. Eventually, when I got back to the Milwaukee area, working in the Milwaukee public schools, I found I had more time, and that time felt more precious. Living in Milwaukee, working in these schools, my kids going to these schools, sparked a passion for spending my energy on things that directly benefit Milwaukee residents, especially those who have been marginalized. That focus on community, combined with the newfound value for my time, helped sharpen my ability to decide where to commit my most important resource. Recently, I have come up with the following questions to ask myself when I am faced with a new commitment. Does what I will be doing align with my values? What can I contribute? Will it give me a sense of purpose? Can I change something or be changed by it? If what I'm considering doesn't align with these 4 questions, then the answer to, will you commit to this, which is often a hard answer to give, is no. These days, if you catch me running, it's more likely that I'll be chasing a food truck than running a 5K. I still try to choose things that will make me stretch my capacities and capabilities. I just don't say yes anymore to things that do not bring joy and fulfillment. Now, when I say yes to something, I am able to say yes with my whole heart. What do you want to say yes to? While you're thinking about that, please enjoy this little song about commitment, written and performed by my son, Preston Carr.
I finally figured it out. I'll be the best journalist in town. Write for the New York Times. Yeah, baby, it's commitment time. Oh, baby, it's commitment time. I'll sign up for a journalism course. Be my own dang primary source. Bring on the writing grind. Yeah, baby, it's commitment time. Oh, baby, it's commitment time. Don't have to worry about my passion anymore. Started at once. Once I get a couple other things done, still have to learn to pay and lose a ton of weight. master people's skills and get a stronger will and write a symphony and make everybody like me. But in the meantime, oh baby, it's commitment time. I'm committed. Yeah, baby, it's commitment time. Oh baby, it's commitment time. I'm committed. Oh baby, it's commitment
Thank you so much, both to Preston and Amy, for that amazing worship associate story and song. Speaking of commitments, Amy did actually make the commitment after some discernment to choose to be a worship associate. I know she's talked about that commitment in the past and how she has been changed by it, and I know she's changed your lives by it as well, based on what you've said to me about learning from her. So I just want to highlight that we are accepting a new round of applications for worship associates, and the deadline is tomorrow. So if you want to apply to be in our next cohort of worship associates like Amy, to do the discernment and make that commitment where your joy and creativity overlap with what the world needs, go onto our website, uumilwaukee.org, and fill out the form. It's a drop-down box under Get Involved. Thank you, Amy and Preston. When I was in my 20s, I held a series of jobs that were supposed to be my calling. I knew that I wanted to make a difference in the world and to live my values with a purpose. And all of the jobs that I held had promise for those intentions. They were all for change-making organizations where my work would be part of their mission, doing good in the world. And I rode in to each one of those positions with high hopes, and then found myself disillusioned and burnt out within a couple of years. I struggled. I kept thinking that I was entering into my dream job, into my calling. And then after a couple of years, I questioned myself. Where was I going wrong? What was going on? Some research on burnout shows higher tendencies towards it in people who are more idealistic and more committed. This is particularly true for folks who work in nonprofits, who bring a deep commitment to their work. The earliest research on burnout showed burnout as a function of the individual. It showed that people who are very driven tend to overcommit and then overwork, burning the candle at both ends and eventually burning out. In this scenario, the desire to do good in the world burns so fiercely in an individual that they sacrifice themselves to it, working their own well-being into the ground. In their book, Proverbs of Ashes, theologians Rebecca Ann Parker and Rita Nakashima Barak argue that self-sacrifice does not save us. Rather, it harms us. They document gendered tendencies towards self-sacrifice, as women in particular are socialized to be helpful and pleasing and to put others before themselves. In patriarchal society, the archetypal good woman puts her spouse, her children, her family before herself. A really good woman also finds time and energy to put the larger community before herself and serve others in some way. It's not only women who have been socialized to self-sacrifice. Children who had absent or potentially addicted parents also learned to overfunction in their earliest relationships with their caregivers, and those children often repeat that pattern later in life. Additionally, in white supremacist society, Black and brown people are trained to self-sacrifice their needs for the needs of white folks. Anyone who has received this kind of socialization, whether it's from an inverted parent-child relationship or from patriarchy or from white supremacy, has to work daily to overcome the instinct to self-sacrifice. We often pay attention to how selfishness and domination cause harm, but self-annihilation can also cause harm. Harm to the self is harm to the fabric of being. Erasure of the self erases the beauty that the self, the beauty that you bring to the world. Loss of the self is loss of a beautiful, beloved, unique individual in the universe of being. When we say, as Unitarian Universalists, that we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every human being, that includes the self as well as the other. Neither love, nor God, nor the human community wants or is made better by self-annihilation. Every single individual has particular and stunning gifts to offer the human community, to offer the world. And that includes you. You are like no other human being on this earth, and what you have to offer is of value. No one else can bring it but you. And if you burn yourself out, burning the candle at both ends, over-functioning, giving and giving to all the commitments, you won't be able to offer those incredibly beautiful and particular gifts to the things that matter most to you. Ironically, putting the self behind the other and sacrificing to people please ultimately not only harms the self, but it also harms the other and relationship. I learned this from a dear friend who would get very upset if she couldn't please me. As a child, she had learned that her worth was derivative rather than inherent, and that her only value came from doing things for other people. Although this friend was extremely helpful, ultimately, that helpfulness prevented authentic connection between us because her worth depended on my approval. So I felt obligated to praise her and to feel a certain way about her choices. It wasn't okay for me to have honest or genuine reactions because anything other than an overwhelmingly positive reaction would be devastating. Not needing to please another person because we know our internal, inherent self-worth actually serves the other person more than trying to please them, because it frees that other person to just be themselves and be true to their own wholeness and complexity. Knowing one's own worth and living it allows for true connection. It gives us the space to be ourselves in all our own wholeness and complexity without needing to do or perform in order to prove our worth in the world. Discernment about commitments requires this first step, knowing your own worth. Making commitments out of overfunctioning or people-pleasing or trying to earn your worth will likely lead to burnout and exhaustion. Dear ones, you are valuable exactly as you are. You don't need to earn your value. You don't need to sacrifice yourself on the altar of goodness or success or perfection. If you knew deep in your soul, if you knew that you already deserve love, if you knew that you're already inherently worthy and you don't need to do anything to deserve your own worth, then what would you choose to do with your time and your energy? In Parker Palmer's book, Let Your Life Speak, Palmer writes, trying to live someone else's life or to live by an abstract norm will invariably fail and might even do great damage. He says, before I can tell my life what I want to do with it, I must listen to my life telling me who I am. I must listen for the truths and values at the heart of my own identity. Without the shoulds, without the musts, without the world rushing in to tell you, what do you know is at the heart of your identity? What's your unique purpose or purposes, and what special gifts do you have to offer this world that needs you and them so very much? I do want to name that there's more to burnout than just individual choices. Systems and institutions can sometimes ask more of us than we can give. Capitalism is a system that's designed to maximize profit from all inputs, and that includes labor. Labor is one of the inputs that goes to create things and to create profits. So that means that the system itself is designed to extract as much labor from you as possible in order to produce a profit. Even nonprofits are affected by this reality. They are situated within the larger system. Indeed, while nonprofits can push against the system of for-profit labor extraction, they still sit in the larger context of it. And studies have shown that nonprofits usually end up in a negative financial feedback loop that's called the nonprofit starvation cycle. In this nonprofit starvation cycle, nonprofits do all they can do to not spend money on overhead, including things like salaries and benefits, as well as basic infrastructure like computers and furniture, training programs. And by doing that, those nonprofits create increasingly unrealistic expectations about how much can be done with very little money and create a feedback loop that reduces the money coming in. Many individuals who are highly committed to an ideal work in institutions, who are committed to an ideal, they work in institutions that are also highly committed to an ideal. And together, those individuals and those institutions connect and interlock in high levels of commitment that make the mission more important than everything else, including the well-being of the people who work at it. Things like functioning computers, health benefits, and balanced lives. The irony here, of course, is that just like self-sacrifice at the individual level, organizational sacrifices like these in the long run do more harm than good. They set up that nonprofit starvation cycle, and in the long run, they undermine the effectiveness and the longevity of the institution and its staff, which makes the institution less effective in serving its mission. Lastly, I want to name that one of the things that can make us hesitant to make the true, real, full yes commitments, that can make us feel scattered and exhausted and experiencing burnout, are major life situations, like, say, a pandemic, that can wear down our reserves and make us more prone to burnout, make us less able to say yes to the things that we really want to say yes to. Right now, overlapping and interconnected systems in our lives, systems like family and work and school, have all received increased doses of stress from the pandemic. Resources to keep us going are zapped in all directions. This past week, the journalist Ellen Cushing published an article in The Atlantic entitled, "Late Stage Pandemic is Messing with Your Brain." In the article, she interviews Mike Yassa, who's a neuroscientist at the University of California, Irvine, who says, quote, "We are all walking around right now with some mild cognitive impairment. Based on everything we know about the brain, two of the things that are really good for it are physical activity and novelty. And the thing that's very bad for it is chronic and perpetual stress." Tina Franklin, a neuroscientist at Georgia Tech who Cushing interviewed, said that the pandemic is, quote, "exposing people to microdoses of unpredictable stress all the time." She actually said that prolonged boredom is hugely stressful for our brains. Our brains actually hate boredom because, quote, "environmental enrichment, being outside your home, bumping into people, commuting, all of these changes that we're collectively being deprived of right now are very associated with synaptic plasticity. They're very associated with our brains functioning, learning, and being plastic. Who knew that we would miss commuting? For the last month, I've been telling people my brain doesn't currently work the way that I'm used to it working. It doesn't retain information, it doesn't solve complex problems, and it doesn't remember anything that's not written down. I have had extraordinary privilege through this pandemic. I've been working, even preaching, as you can see, from home. I have healthcare. I've got a relatively strong immune system. I have other people in my household, and I have a warm, comfortable home with internet and television and phones and books. I'm very privileged. And I am also exhausted, depleted. My brain is functioning differently. According to Cushing's article, this is normal for this moment in our history. The Census Bureau actually shows that, quote, the number of Americans reporting symptoms of anxiety, depression, or both quadrupled from June 2019 to December 2020. Quadrupled. This past week, we passed the 1-year anniversary of this pandemic. This Sunday, today, is our congregation's year anniversary of going virtual. I remember filming our first Sunday in an empty sanctuary last year as a surreal experience. One more layer of new understanding floating on a viscous strangeness. That floating sensation lasted for a while, but it's shifted now into a new daily reality. We've adjusted collectively and individually. But on this year anniversary, no doubt things are coming up for you as they have been for me and many folks around us. Memories, grief, pandemic fatigue and frustration, questioning. What does this mean now? Where are we going? I urge you to hold yourselves and your loved ones gently on this anniversary as your bodies, at the very least, remember the shock to the system, even if your mind isn't rehashing the 1 year ago on this day, 1 year ago on this day reel. Trying to measure a year of shock and fatigue and grief, a year of dramatic change as well as collective trauma, a year of love and human connection, a year of making it work. All of that is labor. It's emotional labor, mental labor, and spiritual labor. It takes energy and time. Try to give yourself some time and space to process, whether that's sitting down to meditate or talking it through with your family, or just a quiet walk, listening to a little music, coming to church on Sunday. Give yourself a little bit of time to process. Dramatic, global, local, and personal change has a way of shaking up our understood priorities. Over the last year, we've all learned new ways of living and of being. More has changed than you thought could change. More has changed than the powers that be thought could change. In all of this change, what have you found truly matters most to you? What are the most important things, people, priorities in your life? What is at the core of you there holding you together? Is it different than what you thought it was? And finally, as you discern your commitments in life, are the actions you take, the commitments you make each day in line with that core of you? Are you being true to yourself, to the calling of your life? I opened this sermon with a challenge to self-sacrifice. But alignment with one's values does not have to mean either self-sacrifice or ceasing to work for the common good. Rather, it means finding and keeping your balance. It means discernment, knowing your core and committing to those priorities. It means saying no to the things that are not your priorities in order to give you space to say yes to the things that are. Letting go of needless shoulds frees up your energy to be alive and enthusiastic in your yes, in that place where your values align with your joy, where your unique gifts enable and release goodness in the world. The theologian Frederick Buechner calls this the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. It's where your creativity meets the world's need, where your unique spirit dances with the world's longing for it. In her book, Practicing Theology, theologian Serene Jones tells the story of a United Church of Christ congregation that went through a visioning exercise together. Similar to our First Church Ends discernment process, the congregation got together and worked hard. They had 3 months of listening to church members' hopes and dreams, followed by 3 months of discerning and articulating the vision in those hopes and dreams, and looking at how it met the current reality of the world. They followed that with developing some concrete strategies for what the church could do to live into that vision of its members. During the listening and the visioning exercises, the congregation and the planning committee were energized and excited. But when they got into the process of planning their implementation strategy, energy took a nosedive. Jones writes, people's faces looked increasingly strained. Attendance began to drop and ideas flowed less freely. At the end of a painfully unproductive meeting, the convener asked a senior member of the committee what she thought about the emerging plans. That senior member said, "I'm sorry, but when I look at this list of things to do, I feel so tired." The committee was understandably discouraged. Working with the convener, they actually paused there and they stopped the powering through process of planning to reflect theologically on their purpose, on their why, and what their role was in this vision the congregation had created. A strange thing happened when they returned to the question of purpose and of their contribution to that purpose. Their own smallness allowed them to feel less overwhelmed Wait, what? No, I'm serious. Through a theological understanding of their own smallness in the face of the arc of the universe, they felt less pressure to do it all, to get it right, to be perfect, to check everything off the list. Through theological reflection, they came to a universalist theological freedom. We are all inherently loved and beloved. And in the end, we will be reunited with one another and the holy in the oneness of all existence. Therefore, our work in the world is simply to be one small measure of love, that small measure that we specifically are called to be, to do only what is possible and ours to do, and to live out the love of the universe in our lives. But no more than that. We're not responsible for the whole of the universe, or for reuniting all of existence for love, or for doing every single thing that must be done. We are only called to do and be our small and specific piece of love here and now. Jones writes, when we began to truly grasp the depth of God's love for the world and the freedom that is given to us in that love, we felt not only the burden of our list lifted from our shoulders, we simultaneously began to see our list as a joyous response to the love that so freed us. A member of the committee said it this way: when we begin to see that what we do as a church doesn't matter, ultimately, we are freed to see how very much our practices do matter in the here and now. Dear ones, may you and may we together know that we are already beloved and inherently worthy, that we matter as beings and need not earn our place in the oneness of all being. May we know that we are already here and be freed to live in our specific piece of living love out loud in the world, the place where our unique gifts and beauty and joy meet the world's need for them. As Lynn Ungar said in our opening words this morning, the solutions, if there are any to be had, are complex, detailed, demanding. The answers are immediate and small. Wake up, give thanks, sing. May it be so, and amen. Thank you so much to Teresa Drews, our collaborative pianist, and thank you all so much for your generosity. As you know, pledges are at the core of our congregation's spiritual practice of generosity. We're also grateful for additional gifts that support our ministry and thank the folks out there who are appreciating this online ministry and are supporting it by texting 73256 with the message "Give to You," or who are giving on our website. Your gifts help us continue to provide this ministry. We also share the plate with an organization every month. The Milwaukee Center for Children and Youth is our March Share the Plate recipient, chosen by our youth group. Their mission is to end the suffering of abused children in Milwaukee through comprehensive advocacy, education, and supportive services that help heal trauma, build resilience, nurture the ability to thrive, and create a path towards eradicating the epidemic of child abuse in our community. To make a donation directly to the Milwaukee Center for Children and Youth, please visit their website at mccy.org/programs. You can see all these options on your screen now, and they'll live on in the YouTube comments section of this video after worship is over. So thank you so much for giving, either right now or when you come back later. Your support keeps us and our community partners going. Our closing words this morning are another poem by Lynn Ungar. It's called "On the Other Side." Through the looking glass, down the rabbit hole, into the wardrobe and out into the enchanted forest where animals talk and danger lurks and nothing works quite the way it did before. You have fallen into a new story. It is possible that you are much bigger or smaller than you thought. It is possible to drown in the ocean of your own tears. It is possible that mysterious friends have armed you with magical weapons you don't yet understand, but which you will need to save your own life and the world. Everything here is foreign. Nothing quite makes sense. That's how it works. Do not confuse the beginning of the story with the end. May it be so, and amen.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going. We know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Whoa, yeah, yeah. 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 Whoa, yeah, yeah.